Hi there, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be covering common phrases and beliefs that can be super harmful for our mental health. I will be going over some of why what we're going to review can be harmful and the implications of each saying in this video. If you disagree with any of these takes here, please feel free to leave your comments below to have your voice added to the conversation. As a disclaimer, the views I express in this video are my own opinions, which are informed by the work I do administering therapy, but are not a substitute for therapy in itself. Getting started at number 1, you need to love yourself before you can start loving someone else. This is usually the first thing we hear from people around us when we're looking to date but feeling a little less than the version of ourselves we'd like to be. This take is a hyper-individualistic one that makes a few different assumptions about our approaches to dating. It assumes that our ability to love others is compromised, it assumes our judgment in selecting a partner is skewed, and it assumes that we are somehow not worthy of love if we haven't reached some arbitrary point of self-actualization. Instead of using this phrase to discourage ourselves from dating, I would instead ask a few questions such as, do I feel comfortable dating right now? What factors into whether I'm comfortable dating or not, and what comes up for me emotionally when I think of dating? Some of the most profound moments of healing can come from the growth we exhibit in relationships to others, and supportive partnerships can often accelerate healing from wounds that we're both aware and unaware of. So the next time you hear this from someone close to you, kindly call them in and see where the conversation goes. Number 2, forgive and forget. How many times have you heard this one? Probably too many times to count. This phrase is ubiquitous in how often it's used, and the emphasis on the second task of this ask is often the most challenging for good reason. But first, let's start with forgiving. The task of forgiving to many is to let go of the pain, anger, and discomfort that comes with being aggressed against. If we are to forgive, there are many ways to go about it that don't feel like we're just trying to brush our emotional experiences under the rug. Some questions I might ask are, what is my incentive to forgive someone? Does repairing the relationship depend on whether I'm able to forgive? And what does forgiveness look like to me? What does a path of non-forgiveness look like in contrast to a path of forgiveness? The second task in this phrase is to forget. This will be among the most direct advice I give you. Don't do it. Because while you may be keen to forgive someone for personal reasons, forgetting the harm does us no favors. Instead, incorporating the harm into the narrative of the relationship allows space for nuance, clarity, and increased awareness of what the relationship can and can't tolerate, and how the other person may behave in scenarios that cause the rupture to begin with. Now, there's some extra considerations here, like whether or not you're going to give the person the benefit of the doubt by allowing them to explain the circumstances that led to the harm, but that's something that is likely going to be covered if you can trust their apologies are genuine and sincere, which leads into our next phrase. Number 3, I'm sorry if. Many of you may be familiar with the sorry if. How many times have you heard both in your real life and in the media the I'm sorry if? If you've ever heard the phrase in your life, consider yourself among the unlucky. An example of the I'm sorry if phrase could sound something like this. I'm sorry if what I said hurt your feelings. In the first example, the key word there is if. When you're apologizing to someone, you never want to use the word if in the way it's used here, as using this conditional word puts the onus on the person harmed to believe that they're being approached in good faith to resolve the dispute. In using the word if, the person attempting to make the apology is not taking accountability, and they are not attempting to empathize with the person they've wronged. When you take the word if out of this, you get a much stronger apology. Bonus points if you're able to state why you think what you said or did has harmed the person you're apologizing to, in an effort to let them know you understand where they may be coming from. That's just one example of how these apologies look like, and I challenge viewers to consider how other apologies with conditional statements may sound. Number 4, you deserve and you don't deserve. One of the habits that needed to die in conducting my own therapy sessions was using the word deserve to show compassion to the folks that I work with. We often use the word deserve in the context of letting the people around us know that they deserve better, deserve love, deserve happiness, or don't deserve some kind of treatment that's been afforded to them. My advice is to eschew the word deserve altogether in relation to ourselves and others. Because when we say deserve, we can oftentimes subscribe to the same wishful or magical thinking that could have brought us to therapy in the first place. In using the word deserve, we are adhering to the idea that the world is a just, safe, and reasonable place, when to many that is just not their lived experience. Instead, I'll often ask clarifying questions about what people's perceptions of the treatment they receive is. I'll ask clarifying questions about why it's not enough to simply want something for themselves as opposed to feeling like they have to deserve it. Because if the world strictly operated on what we did or didn't deserve, we wouldn't see so many in positions of power untouched by the consequences of their abuses and actions. To that point, I ask people to consider going after what they want, and if there's issues with going after what they want, to consider the barriers to getting there when they're related to the type of treatment, success, or goals they have. Number 5, don't be so codependent. This is a really damaging one, and I've got to save the best for last. Codependency can look like a lot of different things to many different people, but the myth that we need to strive to be as independent as possible is just that, a myth. None of us can survive alone or by the fruits of our own labor, and we're objectively much stronger together. This myth also contributes to mental health stigma and blocks thousands, if not millions per year in the US from seeking out mental health services for themselves. It's also important to note here that the idea of codependency can be terrifying to some, especially those who've learned early on that it's not safe to be dependent on others to have our basic needs met. To examine what this phrase does, it actively discourages us from doing a few things. It discourages us from seeking help from others, it discourages us from considering perspectives outside of ourselves, and it creates the illusion that any achievements we have accomplished are due to our own hard work, discounting the contributions of those who have actively contributed to our development. Now, I'm sure there's some of you who are thinking, okay, well, what about the folks who really are too codependent? To that, I'll say that we're likely talking about different things here. There can be levels of dependency for basic needs that people require to survive that don't fall into any psychopathological category. When we talk about psychopathological instances of codependency, we're often talking about dynamics between two people that are inherently dysfunctional and harmful to one or both parties. These instances exclude necessary dependencies with disability, dependencies formed off of reasonable expectations of our partners, and dependencies we have on otherwise supportive systems that we rely on in life, such as emotional support from our family and friends. So as you've likely gleaned by now, this video wasn't just about dispelling the utility of harmful phrases and beliefs, but also taking a closer look and analyzing the implications of these phrases and the impact that they have on the way we see and interact with both ourselves and the world around us. If you've enjoyed this content, please feel free to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos that get released. Thank you all for watching, and I wish you all a wonderful week.